The rights-based approach is an approach which is based on rights or human rights, which are enshrined and exist in various international, regional, and often national documents such as treaties, charters, and conventions, and they are legally binding in many cases on states, which means that countries and governments have an obligation to ensure that these rights are fulfilled. Now, the rights-based approach is quite common in some fields and quite mainstream, so for example in international development. But it's not just relevant to development, it's relevant to everyone. So there are three key principles to the rights-based approach. The first principle is about participation and inclusion, and this is to say that young people should be empowered to claim and exercise their rights as well as defend their rights in order to be actively participating in society. The second principle is about equality and non-discrimination, which means that we need to ensure that young people are not discriminated against on the basis of age or any other factor. And the third and final principle is about accountability and transparency. And this is really about encouraging mutually accountable partnerships between young people who are rights holders and the people who are responsible for validating their rights, or duty bearers. The rights-based approach is relevant and quite important because, well, first of all, it's often contrasted with a more traditional needs-based approach where people talk about the needs. So the rights-based approach is shifting more from a focus on individuals and groups to a focus on universal rights. So first of all, human rights are universal and inalienable, which means they're applicable to everyone everywhere and that they cannot be taken away. And this is not necessarily the case when it comes to needs. Secondly, states have a legal obligation to fulfill these rights, to fulfill human rights, to fulfill the rights of young people. And again, this is not necessarily the case when it comes to needs. There's no legal obligation to ensure that needs are met. Another reason why the rights-based approach is important is because it really tackles the root causes of problems by addressing structural injustices as opposed to just focusing on needs at the surface. And going and thinking about the principle of accountability, the rights-based approach is about holding states and power holders to account and not just asking them to fulfill certain needs, and equally thinking about the principle of participation. It's about empowering citizens and young people to really claim their rights and exercise their rights as opposed to just asking for certain needs to be met. Another reason is the fact that it really encourages partnerships, mutual partnerships between different organizations and groups in society, as opposed to focusing solely on the needs of one group or certain individuals. So one way of kind of thinking about it is also thinking about the difference when we communicate in our work between saying, you know, young people need jobs, or young people have a right to jobs, or have a right to employment. So that's why the rights-based approach is very important.